As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero Life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. And what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Obscurity Now, the show that takes a look at weird and almost forgotten pieces of media and decides if they should be remembered for just a little while longer or tossed into the CGI'd black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again. My name is Steve, and with me is a man whose birth cry was the sound of 1,000,000 telephones ringing in unison.
Yahel, and I am excited and energized to be. I'm like a drugged out chimp that's using a key card to get out of a building. That's the level of excitement.
And you know what? You are my best chimp! Which is like, I think, one of the best unintentional lines of the script of the film we are watching today, which is the Lawn MowerMan. If you didn't have... what's up?
I'm sorry to interrupt you right off the bat, but I don't know if you read this when researching it, but I read that had Pierce Brosnan, I always mispronounce his name, it's Brosnan, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That motherfucker, Pierce, if he had signed on to do another James Bond movie, it was going to be called James Bond, That Was My Best Chimp.
Oh, so, and it just would have been him and a monkey saving the world. Oh, man, that is a $1 billion idea there. It probably would have been better than Die Another Day, which a lot of people hate, but I love because it's so bad it's good. But maybe we'll review that one somewhere down the line. But if you're here checking, if you're with us, thanks. This is going to be a really long episode because this is a long movie.
I was going to suggest, and I meant to say this before we went live, but I was too busy texting, that we should probably not go into it step by step, scene by scene, in as much detail as we normally do, because it is a long film, indeed. Yeah,
we'll try to hit some highlights. I mean, there are a lot of highlights, though.
Highlights.
A lot of highlights and lowlights. A lot of ins and outs. A lot of what have yous. But let's just jump right in with our feature presentation. Welcome to your feature presentation. All right, as I said, we are taking a look at the Lawn MowerMan, which was released March 6th, 1992. Yahel, before we talk about the Lawn MowerMan, let's talk about the man whose story this was pseudo-inspired by, one Stephen King. Are you a fan? Have you read any books? What's your favorite Stephen King sort of adaptation movie?
I think the only Stephen book. Anyways, I'm tired and hungover, folks. It's going to be a long one.
Yes.
The only Stephen King book that I think I've read is, because I started a couple, but I want to say The Stand.
Oh, you made it all the way through that one, huh?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And, coincidentally, my favorite adaptation was The Stand, like the original TV miniseries, The Stand.
Interesting. Okay. I will say the only book that I've actually read is actually one of his non-horror ones. It is a crime book called The Colorado Kid. And I don't know, it's about like a...
Oh, I thought maybe it was called The Making of the Lawnmower Man. He said it was a crime book. My apologies.
Ooh, wow, look at that biting satire. I love it already off the bat.
Zesty.
At least I think that's what... Anyway, it was good, although, like many of his books, or at least... And this is one of the reasons why I haven't actually sat down and like read too many of them. Because I started listening to The Dark Tower on audiobook, but then someone told me... I don't know if you are familiar, but the Dark Tower, like... I guess like most of his books, all of them are super long, and it's a series of like, I don't know, 10 books or something. And then the ending is absolutely awful, which I guess he's pretty much known for, really terrible endings in his in a lot of his books, at least nowadays. And if you can't deliver on an ending after I've devoted so much time into like reading your work, then I'm just no thanks. I'll just stick to the movies. Fair. So yeah, all right. So you got one Stephen King book under your belt. I've got one. How about your experience with some of the adaptations of his films?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it.
Both versions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I prefer the original. I don't know why. Maybe that's just my Tim Curry fanboy.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, The Stand, like I already mentioned. Like right now, I Pet Sematary, I think that was one of his also, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a bunch of his like right now because of the crippling hangover. I can't think of too many off the top of my head. But
right, all right. I'll just jump in. I'll jump in there while you maybe try to think about some more. Yeah, I feel like Stephen King movies were always on cable, of course, usually edited, and my mom was always trying to suggest that I watch some of them. Carrie, most notably, at least the edited version,
yeah, that's a good one
for sure. And I think the ones that work well the most are the ones that where like a visionary director really came in there and really like sort of like I guess took the essence of the book and reformatted it to film, because I feel like in a lot of the Stephen King movies, like there's just so much story that a lot of the time they have a hard time adapting it to the feature film format, and I definitely think the Lawn MowerMan suffers from that problem, but we will get more into that later. But my favorite Stephen King movie, I would say, has got to be The Shining, even though I know it differs greatly from the book, or so I've been told. Keep telling myself I'm going to read the book someday, but it's probably not.
But you're full of shit. So
most likely it'll probably be an audiobook. I'm an audiobook guy. That way,
dishonest person that can't be trusted. So
right. So make sure you stick around for more episodes, ladies and gentlemen. But and then also I like Christine. That's a John Carpenter movie, and then as you Carrie, of course, that's Brian De Palma. Do you know of his movies? Which one he actually directed?
Oh, shoot. I knew this not too long ago, but go ahead. I'm not going to remember.
It's a Maximum Overdrive. And I actually like that one quite a bit, mostly because of the AC/DC score.
Doesn't he have a part in it as well?
He's got a lot of cameos. I know he has like
I thought he had a more substantial part in that one, but I may be misremembering.
You might be thinking of a Creep Show. He has like a big part at the end of Creep Show.
That is what I'm thinking of.
All right, enough about Stephen King and his billions of dollars. Let's move on to The Lawnmower Man itself. As I said, it premiered March 6th, 1992. Did you go see this in the theater? When was your first experience with The Lawnmower Man?
I definitely did not see this in the theater. I remember seeing it on TV, but I never caught like the whole thing. I feel like I was always kind of catching it towards the end once he's already like the avatar, the VR avatar.
Strung out Tron, I like to call him.
Yeah, Strung Out Tron's pretty good. I would have gone with Meth Tron, but I can do the same thing.
Yeah, sure.
Somebody was certainly on meth during the making of this, but yeah, this is the first time I sat through and watched the whole thing from beginning to end.
Wow. Well,
what about you?
Well, I was really, man, this was like, I don't know, almost like a, what's that thing called? Almost sort of like a Mandela effect or sort of Inception kind of moment I had as I was watching this, because I thought I might have seen it when it came out in the theater. And so I was seeking out the theatrical version for us to watch because the director's cut is so long. Like, I mean, the theatrical version in itself is long. The director's cut has an additional like almost 20 minutes.
No, I think it's more than that, isn't it? Because the one that we watched, the theatrical release, is an hour and 48 minutes.
Right.
and the director's cut is 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Right. So yeah, more like
it's like
40.
half an hour.
Yeah.
Which is, come on.
I know, that's like Marvel movie territory there. Like that's huge for the 90s. Like people didn't have the attention spans back then.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. I think 1 hour and 48 minutes was too much.
Oh, for this version, yes. But anyway, as I was going through and watching this, like I thought I was going to be seeing the version that I saw possibly in the theater back in the 90s. And as I was watching it, I was like, no, this is not the version I saw back in the 90s, which then tells me that my friends must have like rented it, maybe for like, I don't know, a sleepover or something. And we all watched it, and I must have seen the director's cut all this time because like, well, we're going to get to the opening here in a minute, but the opening is completely different. The one that I remember than what we're about to discuss here. So yeah, like I saw Lawn MowerMan back in the 90s, and it had a huge impression on me, especially since I was really big into video games, and watching them play the games in this, I mean, it just sort of blew my mind. I was like, wow, those games look awesome. Of course, they weren't actual playable video games. They were just fancy CGI, but still, like they still look cool and just sort of like...
Well, one of the games actually looks a little bit, at least to me, it reminded me a little bit of Cybermorph on the Atari Jaguar.
Oh, which
the game that the chimp is playing at the beginning?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. For sure. Yeah, that game looked really cool. And the one when they're racing, the flying one, I always thought that looked really cool too. Anyway, here's a poorly written synopsis off of IMDb. Here we go. A scientist performs experiments involving intelligence enhancing drugs and virtual reality on a simple-minded gardener. He puts the gardener on an extensive schedule of learning, and quickly he becomes brilliant. But at this point, the gardener has a few ideas of his own on how the research should continue, and the scientist begins losing control of his experiment. And this was directed by Brett Leonard. Yahel, what's your favorite Brett Leonard movie?
Probably the Lawnmower Man.
It might be because he doesn't have a great filmography here. He's actually still working. Another movie, people
like in the industry or like down the street at a store. He just has a.
He's the janitor at the local Catholic girls' school. No, he's still working in the industry. He's got like a project slated to come out here in 2022. He's still working despite pretty much being the guy who killed off the Highlander franchise with Highlander the Source, which is the fifth and currently the final Highlander TV movie that came on Sci-Fi, which like everybody hated. And so I've got him for that. Apparently he did, are you familiar with the Marvel character known as Man-Thing?
Oh, yeah.
It's basically their answer to Swamp Thing, in case you don't know, listener. He did a movie for that. I'm actually very curious to see that. I think I remember it coming out and then completely forgot about it. And then, do you remember the film, again from the 90s, with Denzel Washington, Virtuosity?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think he did that one not too long after The Lawnmower Man. So somehow he still kept getting work. And writers, this Brett Leonard, he's just a triple threat almost, because he also worked on the script and right next to Gamil Everett, who wrote something called The Dead Pit, and I guess usually works as a producer alongside Brett Leonard. She produced Man-Thing and Virtuosity, and also produced The Lawnmower Man, so you can help blame her as well for this film, or laud her. We haven't really decided yet. Stay tuned to the end. And of course, this was produced by New Line Cinema. Did you want to help give us a taste of what was going on during ¡93? Do we have that segment going on today?
Sure. This is this was released March '92.
Oh, no, okay.
So, Steve, let's start off with the number one song in the country for March of 1992. I will give you a clue. It is by a band.
Okay.
I would call them, you would classify them as a hair metal band, I think, or at least like a glam metal band, but not quite to the extreme of like Poison.
Is it Guns N' Roses?
Nope. And the song is a ballad. I should.
Oh. Well, I'll never be able to guess that. Why don't you just tell me?
All right. So this song was the #1 song from the week of February 29th until March 28th. It was "To Be With You" by Mr. Big.
Oh, that song. Okay. Yeah, I know that one, but I never would have been able to guess it.
Yeah. And then for the '1 film in America, I'll give you a clue. It is based on an SNL skit.
Oh, 92.
1992.
Dang. SNL skit.
It got a sequel.
Wayne's World.
Yep, good job.
All right.
It was #1 from the week of February 17th all the way to March 22nd when Sharon Stone's
lady parts?
Acting toward the Force in Basic Instinct is what I was going to say.
Okay.
Rose to #1. But just to change it up a little bit, Steve, because this podcast is heard all over the world.
Sure.
What do you think the #1 movie would have been in the UK? It was not Wayne's World.
Yeah, I could see that. I have no idea.
Cape Fear, actually.
Huh. Oh, that's odd. Huh.
Yeah.
Those are both good movies, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and Cape Fear came out in '91 in the States, but it must have been like in '91, but for whatever reason, '92 is when it came out over there. But that's what was going on.
Nice.
That's what was driving the creative juices, the creative goo inside the skulls of the people that made this movie.
I just can't believe *MowerMan wasn't #1. Maybe we can find out why.
I can tell you this: it was #4 the week it debuted.
Oh, all right. See, it had legs. I mean, we're still talking about it here.
It wasn't like people like talking about it like it was like a failure. It wasn't a failure. It just wasn't like a huge hit.
No,
it's not like it bombed.
No, it's as you're gonna see, it is a mixed bag of filmmaking, I think. But why don't you take us through a bit of the cast here?
Okay, I'm gonna make this quick because man, it's a long movie and we're already 20 minutes in. So obviously we have Pierce Brosnan,
Nice.
who he's been in a bunch of stuff. I actually really like him as an actor.
Oh, I love Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, he's really fun in interviews too. He seems like seems like a fun, charming guy. Anyways, you've seen him in James Bond and a million other things. Famous guy. Job Smith, aka the Lawnmower Man, was played by Jeff Fahey. I really wasn't familiar, honestly, with this guy, but he has a ton of credits and he's still acting. He was in Lost, which people might recognize him from. He was in a couple seasons of that. But he still gets like lots and lots of parts. He was in Justified for a little while. He was also in, I already said that, Lost. So yeah, those are the two main people. We also have Dean Norris, I think was another guy I recognized. He was the director. Dean Norris is another guy who you may not know the name, but you certainly know his face, right? Like he's been in tons and tons of stuff. He was in Breaking Bad. He was Hank in Breaking Bad. I think that's probably what a lot of people would recognize him from these days. But he's been in a bunch of stuff. Like the guy's always working. He was in a few episodes of Better Call Saul, Terminator 2, a bunch of stuff. Honestly, like to me, those were and Mark Bringleson, who plays Sebastian Timms. He's done some things, meh. And I mean, there's a lot of characters in this movie, so I don't want to go through everybody else because it's a pretty big cast. Because there's like lots of little side characters.
Yeah, there's no need to.
LawnmowerMan interacts with.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we will just jump right in, and we get some nice, scary looking text at the beginning, talking about VR, saying that some view it as having millions of great usages, God, while others say it's just a new form of mind control. I mean, and who needs VR when you got other forms of mind control?
Like who are the people at this party where these things are being overheard? You know,
now, that sounds like a fun little cocktail conversation. It's like,
don't you love it too when a movie just starts with like a paragraph for you to read?
Hey, it worked for Star Wars, right?
Star Wars is like the only one that can really get away with it, I feel like.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's what in script writing 101, they say that like that's a no-no. But anyway, yeah, I mean, who needs, VR mind control when you've got religion and the mainstream media? But anyway, I digress. So yeah, right off the bat, I would like to ask you what you think about this soundtrack.
Man, real weird.
It sucks. This soundtrack is so cheesy. Like, it's I mean, if you compare this to like the soundtrack of the original Tron, which like it isn't fun, the original soundtrack for Tron, but they at least like use electric instruments.
It fits.
So yeah, it fits. This.
Yeah, there's like right from the beginning, it doesn't fit. Like, after we read our paragraph and we see our first live shot of the outside of a building, it's like this weird.
Right. Yeah.
It's like nothing. It's the kind of like thing you'd think you'd hear when something happened, but nothing's happened. It's just a shot of an outside of a building.
And like when they have shots of like the idyllic neighborhood where the LawnmowerMan works, it just sounds like cheesy, just sitcom, almost like soap opera music, like stuff you could get from like Incompetech with Kevin MacLeod. Like basically, if you just
hey,
I mean,
his stuff
is good, especially since it's free. I mean, but they paid this man, this Dan Wyman, to do, and I really think that the LawnmowerMan could have, if it had a better score, it probably could have shown a little bit brighter. Especially, I mean, there was plenty of industrial music, plus already this is like post-'80s new wave. I mean, it's not like the synthesizer was just invented, but anyway, that's just me. Yeah, continuing on here, we see the sign for the Virtual Sphere Industries, which is known as VSI, which is basically the big, scary computer lab where Pierce Brosnan, a.k.a. Dr. Angelo, works and does all of his computer-y experiments and stuff.
Yeah.
And we see
this guy is like a software genius. He's also a medical doctor, apparently, of some kind.
He's a little bit of everything.
He's an engineer. He's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
He can do it all.
He's anything except for a lover to his, I guess, was that supposed to be his wife or girlfriend?
Yeah,
they weren't really.
It's his wife.
Yeah, because he's too into his work. He doesn't have time to mess around, to gallivant around with hussies. But that's she's very unlikable. But honestly, at first he's pretty unlikable because our first interactions with him our first kind of introduction to him for the most part is him and his wife like kind of being petty. Right, and yeah, we'll get to that. Like, basically, let's just sort of breeze through our cold open
go
here.
Ahead, Steve. Yeah. Please, my God. Please.
Yeah, we get some voiceover here, which, I mean, the whole edit of this film and pacing feels really weird. Have you ever watched a fan edit, Yahel? Like, of any movie?
Yeah.
Like, this whole movie feels like a fan edit. Like, they were trying to cut down from the original, like, director's cut. They were trying to cut down on runtime. So they were putting a lot of like the lines over other scenes, so just so they could condense the runtime. So we're basically seeing shots of VSI, this very dimly lit, like scary looking lab. Everything's blue. You see all their animal testing. I remember that was like a big thing in the 90s. Everyone was against animal testing. I mean, I guess people still are, but it was like a big hot button issue back then. And you hear
Steve is very pro animal testing.
Oh yeah, test them all, man. Test them all. You got to test them all. Like
test them all.
I mean, that was going to be the original Pokemon slogan, but they changed it. The liberals made them change it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm eating free range chickens, eggs.
Yeah, you have your own chickens, right? Anyway, so we're zooming through, and they're basically talking about his experiments. Pierce Brosnan is talking about how his chimp is doing great.
The best chimp ever.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And but this other guy who ends up being Tim's, who basically represents, I mean, he's the money man. There's always a money man in these things, just like we saw with Murder, She Wrote. He works for MSI and is basically like, oh, we need you to up your experiments on the chimp here. They want them to be able.
They want them to be more, the chimp to be more aggressive,
right?
And they're giving like the chimp this formula, nootropic drugs,
right? To be able to use the infrared battle helmet. Which, just hearing someone say that out loud just sounds hilarious. I don't know. So they're talking about the chimp, which we actually see, and he's wearing a helmet / mask combo that looks like, I don't know, a mix between RoboCop and, remember the toy line Mask? Remember?
Yeah.
Totally reminded me of that. And the bad guy,
see that.
Yeah, he says they want the chimp battle ready. Pierce says, "Screw the political assholes. He's the best chimp I've ever had." And
because this is gonna hurt the chimp,
basically. Right,
and might fry the chimp's brain or something.
And I never got the subtext of that line before, but clearly, I mean, Dr. Angelo and the chimp have been hooking up. They had a relationship the whole time. I just never saw it until now.
Well, you know what it is? The chimp doesn't mind when he smokes in bed, unlike his ungrateful wife. As we'll see later.
Right. So then we cut to a battle simulation, which this is the first of many awesome 90s CGI moments, and some are better than others. I think a lot of these are featured in the film. I think it's called Gate 2 or Beyond the Mind's Eye, which is basically just a collection of CGI films at the time.
It's Beyond the Mind's Eye.
Yeah, and this one is pretty good. I'd say it looks like as you what game did you say it looked like from what Atari game?
Well, it reminded me of Cybermorph, because it's kind of similar, where you're like kind of, even though you don't see a ship because it's like a first person perspective from the monkey or whatever,
right?
But the monkey's kind of like flying through and like shooting things, and just the way like the ground is, the layout of the terrain. It's very similar and kind of like bright colors.
Yeah, and
very simple polygons.
Right, and I really liked the look of that. Really, of that one, it was very retro and pretty cool looking. Even here in 2022, if you're looking for that retro aesthetic. So anyway, we roll the opening credits. I kind of like the lime green wipe and the noise they use just for the logo. I just thought it bared mentioning. So cut to the chimp escapes. I guess we can assume since. That guy Tim's got his way and they made him more aggressive. It just made him more intelligent, so he's now able to escape. We get to see through his helmet's visor, RoboCop style, and man, does it look cheap. He steals a guard's gun and key card, and it's great the way they shoot this. It's so obvious that it's not a monkey. They're just, shooting behind a mannequin dressed in the helmet and everything, and you just see him off camera swiping the key card and getting through all the doors. Let's see, he makes his way
very cheap. It came off very cheap.
Yeah, and that's the thing with this movie, is that sometimes it feels really expensive and other times really cheap, almost like a kind of B movie, as you'll see as we move forward. And this is so he gets to the last door, and you can see on his HUD, or heads-up display or visor, that he's at the final exit. And as he makes it there, there's a gunshot. And this is when I was having my Inception moment. I was like, what? I don't remember the chimp getting shot or dying, because in the director's cut version, the way it happens is he actually gets away and sort of leads Pierce Brosnan and I guess the MSI security to Job. And I just remember him going over and over again, Cybo-Man. He keeps calling him Cybo-Man, like this comic book character or something, which is almost sort of touched on here. But anyway, we got way too much to talk about.
Yes, please.
So anyway.
Never mention the director's cut again.
I mean, I think it's, all right. So Pierce Brosnan jumps awake from a bad dream in bed. He realizes the TV is on, just showing war footage. So I guess that's supposed to say that it was bleeding into his dream. His wife wakes up next to him. He tries to, I guess we can assume he's trying to instigate a little, but she's not interested. He gets up and absorbs the next door neighbor's fighting, which is pretty integral for the plot later on. The phone rings, and I guess it's Tim's, and he tells Dr. Angelo that his chimp is dead. So now we're back at the lab. Dr. Angelo argues with Tim, and that's when Tim says that he's the military liaison. They also refer to Dr. Angelo as a Larry a few times, which I think is funny. Says he wants to make something better than a military weapon. So yeah, this is all like, your typical, 90s tropes here, raging against the man in the military. I want to do something better for science, which works. All right, and this all leads to Dr. Angelo taking a hiatus. Cut to a man in overalls walks into a shack. This guy, he's Terry McKeon. He's just pretty much a side character. Inside the shack, we meet Job. Spoiler alert, the guy who will become the Lawnmower Man. This is Jeff Fahey. We see there's religious artifacts around the shack as well. And an awesome looking lawnmower that apparently he built himself. Now anything we need to touch on there?
No. I think you pretty much covered it.
Right. And and if it's not hammered home here in the next scene at the gas station, the gas station attendant picks on Job, calls him a half-wit, and it's revealed that Job is a little bit on the spectrum, a little slow, if you will. What do you think about Jeff Fahey's performance as Job?
It's 1992, right? Mm-hmm. So he kind of does a little bit of the what's that movie that I keep wanting to say Hook, but that's not the movie that Billy Bob Thornton did.
Sling Blade?
Kind of Sling Blade, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like in that same vein to me a little bit, his performance, but that's kind of like what back then, like how everybody that was playing a character that was supposed to have some kind of mental handicap, I feel like they always kind of got played the same way. He is pretty sympathetic, I will say.
Oh yeah, I always felt really bad for Job. I think he does a really good job, especially when you look at where he starts and where he ends up at the end. Like it's
right,
a pretty good transformation. Yeah, and he really
he doesn't. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say he really commits, and according to IMDb, he wins a Golden Chainsaw Award from Fangoria for his performance in the Lawnmower Man.
Nice, nice.
Yep. But were you gonna?
You at least, I will say this for this movie, you at least get to see Jeff Fahey's range as an actor.
Yeah, I think it's
so. Like,
one of the pluses.
I was like. Yeah, even though some of the dialogue some of the dialogue, a lot of the dialogue he's given is clunky. For sure. You still can see that he does. He almost gets a chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Yeah,
almost
for sure. And since we're talking about performances, what do you think of a young Pierce Brosnan's performance in this film?
Yeah, well, he's not that young here, but right, he's already.
Well, I guess young to how we know. Yeah, 50. You think so? No way.
40s.
Yeah, 40. Okay.
Well, actually, 40 is very young. 40s now that.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Yeah, 40 is super young. What are you saying?
Yeah. My libido has never been higher.
Thanks to Testofen.
But no, Pierce is good. He gets probably the most ridiculous, some of the worst dialogue, I would say, and he does a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, I think I feel like he hams it up in certain areas, and as you were saying before, he's not that likable at times, but it's not his fault. It's the way the character is written. I think the director's cut is actually sort of more from Job's point of view, which I think probably would have helped the movie a lot. But anyway, moving on. So the director, let's see, cut to a meeting room at VSI where, so I guess we were at the gas station. The biker guy is smoking, and Job freaks out, and the gas station attendant calls him a half-wit. The gas station guy is your typical bully, big surprise. And Terry... who was the brother of the priest who we're going to meet later. He sort of diffuses the situation. Anyway, cut to a meeting room at VSI. Tim's is having a the world's largest Skype meeting with the director, who is just on this massive screen, and we see a lot of these really sort of short meetings between the villains, which I feel like I guess maybe were edited.
It happened too many times.
Yeah, and it really slows down the pacing, and I don't know.
This guy reminded me of the bad guy, or who we think is supposed to be the main bad guy in Equilibrium.
Oh, absolutely.
Just the way he talked, and he was the guy always giving these speeches or whatever. Like, he even kind of looked like him a little bit in the face.
Yeah. Oh man, good
totally
reference.
Reminded me of that guy from Equilibrium.
Yeah. All right. So now
we should cover that.
I agree, 100%. So cut to Dr. Angelo wearing VR gear in his home. This is always a funny scene for me. He's playing this game that makes, I guess, the player feel like they're floating around in a Skittles commercial. He waves his hand and opens up this dialogue box that gives you the options that read floating, flying, or falling. And there's all these weird moaning sounds in the game. I think some of them are coming from him.
It should be like floating, flying, or fucking.
Well,
which, funny enough, his wife comes in and says, "What's next? Virtual fucking or something?"
Yeah,
like
she says she comes in, she unplugs the game, and this is funny because I feel like this scene is probably fortuitous or foretells the future of many marriages in 2022. Of just wives coming in and unplugging, unhappy wives coming in and unplugging their husbands, Xbox or PlayStation, going, "Pay attention to me." Now, I don't have that problem. Other people, though. But yeah, she comes in, she unplugs the game, and he's like, "What are you doing, Caroline? You never unplug a VR game, whatever, console." And she goes, "Floating, flying, falling. What's next? Fucking." And I always thought that, sadly, that line always stuck with me all the way from 1992 to here in 2022. It always cracked me up.
Right.
And that's the weird thing about this script is that it's pretty bad, as you said, with some pretty bad dialogue, but there are a few gems here and there. So but this is where we see more or less that their relationship is not good. He basically chooses, in the classic sort of mad scientist way, he chooses his work over his wife. And now we cut to a sorry. Cut to a nice big lawn. Peter, the local boy, comes to hang out with Job, who's cutting that big lawn. That lawn happens to belong to Dr. Angelo. Now we cut to a creepy church with creepy priests. He's spraying roaches and says that's supposed to be Job's job. He finds Job, yada, yada, yada. He basically beats Job with a belt. I guess he takes pleasure in it. I mean, they aren't really. I mean, what do you read into that whole little relationship?
Yeah,
there?
We never really find out the priest's motivation. I was like, oh wait. At first I was like, oh, is this gonna be a sexual thing? Mm-hmm. Because it's a priest, right? So that's just where you would assume bad guy priest in a movie. But I guess basically he's just taking advantage of him because he's dim-witted, and obviously he's just an abusive guy.
Right.
So it seems like it's just a physical.
We could say that
just a physical use.
He's just enjoying assert his power over another human being of lesser intelligence, sadly. So he whips him with a belt for not remembering his chores. Cut to Dr. Angelo. Caroline's leaving. Larry, aka Angelo, says that Caroline. I really hate I kind of wish they would have maybe had Dr. Angelo deal with him not being able to work on his work better than just sitting around and moping about it and drinking. He just goes, "Oh, Caroline, you have no idea what I'm going through about my work." But whatever, it works for the sake of the movie and the plot. Time lapse.
Sure.
Dr. Angelo says his hiatus is driving him insane. He wishes he had a human subject, and he happens upon Job cutting his grass. The music here sounds like a soap opera. He asks Job if he wants to come inside and play a game. And of course, Job says...
And again, sorry to cut you off here, but kind of back to Pierce Brosnan's character being an unlikable guy.
Yeah.
he isn't too different from this Catholic priest. If you think about it, he sees a simpleton, that he can, simple-minded guy that he can take advantage of for his own. Now, he doesn't want to hurt him, I mean, we do see that Pierce has like a conscience and those kind of things.
Right. But he's also obviously driven by his, his ego and just, the typical drive of your typical mad scientist. So Job plays some games. The first one is like your basic sort of put the square in the other square kind of, I don't know, kindergarten kind of thing. The second one is the awesome flying one we talked about before that I always thought looked awesome. He plays against Peter and loses. Dr. Angelo says he has other games that could help make him smarter. Job agrees, and he's like telling this part was kind of iffy. I guess he's cut to Job is in the church. I guess he's dusting a giant crucifix, and I guess he's telling Jesus about Dr. Angelo and the tests. And we see Father McKeon, and it looks like he overhears, but he doesn't really do anything about it. So maybe...
Yeah, it was a little weird and disjointed. I don't know, maybe there's something in the director's cut that like better...
Yeah, well, we could only hope.
Together or something.
But Dr. Angelo gives Job a shot, then he puts the VR system on and begins to treat Job's brain. Is this when they're doing the... like the weird, like flashy symbols on.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. I was reading on the IMDb that those are like Kabbalistic like symbols that they were flashing. From the Kabbalah, which I don't know if you're familiar with all that weird chaos magic stuff, but yeah.
Isn't it like some kind of Hebrew mysticism or something?
Yeah,
like that?
That's exactly it. Yeah. Okay, moving on. So while on lunch break, Job sees an attractive woman. They do more VR games. Job responds and gets smarter this time. He beats Peter at the flying game. Dr. Angelo says now he's on the next level. So then he breaks out the Sega Genesis. Just kidding, I wrote that in. Father McKeon walks...
The next level, for those that don't know, was Welcome to the Next Level was one of Sega's marketing slogans.
Thank you for explaining the reference. So Father McKeon walks in on Job. He tries to whip him good, but Job stops him and says, "You shouldn't hit people." And I thought that was a pretty good moment, actually, because it's like, yeah, fight back, Job.
Yeah. And at this point, and I thought they did a good job with transitioning Job's character from as he gets smarter. It's not like this jarring thing where suddenly he's smarter, and we find out like a lot of time has like gone on, because like when there's a narrative voiceover from Pierce Brosnan's character where he talks about like, oh, it's been a month of treatments and blah blah blah, and we do see that Job is like a little bit smarter, but he's not like, even though it's been a month, he's not like super smart. So I do like that, like this happens over a long period of time.
Right. And so skipping over a bit here. Oh wait, I don't want to skip over that. Basically, he ends up taking Job to VSI. And this is where we get a lot of the really cool, I guess, sort of imagery that the LawnmowerMan is known for. The gyroscopes, those sort of like ball things that they get into, and then what they call cyber suits, which I mean I think are pretty much Tron suits. I mean they look exactly the same, I'd say, which are supposed to like enhance the whole VR experience. And we didn't even comment on because we've already seen actually we already saw this at the beginning when the monkey was in there. But now Job's going to go in there, and basically he's going to be the monkey this time. And they go in there, and we see a big CGI brain and a bunch of other weird floating crap. And Timms comes in and observes the session. There's basically a scene that we skipped over where Pierce or Dr. Angelo tells Timms about the experiments that he's been doing at home, and asks to go back to VSI, which, I mean, is kind of, I mean, you can see the bind that, Dr. Angelo is in. I'm sure he doesn't want to go back to VSI, but at the same time, his scientific curiosity is just driving him forward, back to the hands of the military bastards that he hates. So cut to Job cuts grass shirtless, and he sees the attractive lady from before. There's like a run-in with her at the gas station that we skipped over. It's really not that expensive or important. Why did I say expensive? And it's weird because like I feel like she's like the only attractive woman in town because they never show anyone else. But that's just more about, I guess, having a small cast, I guess. So basically, she invites him inside, and it gets.
Then she invites him inside.
And I wrote here, congratulations, lady, you just took advantage of someone who's on the spectrum.
Yes. I thought that too. I'm like, this is rapey. This is rape.
Yeah,
basically, right? Like
but back then, it was the 90s. It's all about boys will be boys. It's okay because
he does want to.
Oh, yeah,
so
for sure.
Maybe rape's not the right word, but she's still kind of taking advantage of him, either way. And I do like that. His it's not his dad, but like the other long guy,
Terry McKean.
Kind of his keeper or whatever is like, you better go inside and get your son.
he's all about it. Oh my gosh, that that was pretty.
What a good guy, I guess.
Yeah. So now we're back I believe we're at the lab, and Tim tells Larry he wants to move forward now with more experiments on Job. Larry says there's more things that he wants to iron out. So basically, we're going through the same stuff with Job as he went through with the chimp. Then we jump through the diner scene, and this is finally where things kind of start to go wrong. Before, I guess you could say we were in the fun and games stage. For those who've read the Save the Cat book, screenwriting book, Job goes into the diner. He talks to Peter. This is where they show like that comic they sort of reference more in the director's cut. He's like, Peter goes, "Don't you want to check out the comics?" And Job's like, "Nah, I've given it up." Apparently, he's become too intelligent for comic books, which
for comics,
I am highly offended that anyone would write that in their movie. But
I thought it was weird that I guess this diner has a comic book section.
Right. Well, I guess this is supposed to be one of those small towns that maybe that's how it was back in the 50s, when America was great. I don't know.
That's great. Yeah, when you could take advantage of mentally challenged people,
right, and just go have sex with them. Yes,
and the town celebrated, celebrated you.
Exactly.
Yeah, what a great time.
So it was weird. I feel like nothing really triggered it. Just out of nowhere, he starts grabbing the sides of his head and starts hearing all the thoughts of the townspeople inside the diner. Now he immediately goes back to Dr. Angelo, and the doc says he'll figure something out. I think this scene is kind of interesting because clearly, he's more interested in the fact that, it's almost like a sort of balance where he's like just so fascinated about what's going on. It seems like he's concentrating more on that than he is with Job's health.
And this is one of the weird lines that they gave to Pierce that I was like, ooh, this is not a good line. But Pierce Brosnan, he said something like, "Oh, I always wondered if abilities and powers were possible for humans, and I thought this experiment might unlock them." Did you really think that you just because you were gonna make a guy a little smarter that he'd suddenly be able to hear people's thoughts? Really, that's quite the leap there, James Bond. But
right, for sure. And then I love how he also after he discovers that he's a psychic, he immediately thinks to himself, "I have to keep this psychic stuff secret from Timms." And then Job goes, "Who's Timms?" And so we immediately cut to another Skype conversation with Timms and the big-headed director. The director tells him he needs to guide Dr. Angelo's research in the right direction, into the military direction. Of course, Tim's you see Tim's messing with the VR unit at VSI. Dr. Angelo does another session with Job, and it immediately messes Job up even further with, I wrote the name down with what it is that they call it later in my notes. I'll get it later, but it messes Job up with whatever they did with the chimp, and Dr. Angelo comes and rips him out of the gyroscope, and Job goes, I saw God, which is really creepy. It was a good creepy moment.
Yeah.
So then Job is in the bathroom, and now he has telekinetic powers, which he uses to squeeze toothpaste out of a toothpaste tube. I mean, I'd use it to do some other stuff, but if you want to use it to brush your teeth, why not?
Whatever.
Job takes his girlfriend, who took advantage of him, to VSI. And did you notice I think they have like the same like hair dye, Job and his girlfriend? I don't know. It just looked
very similar, very similar. By the way, something I wanted to mention earlier, when we first see Pierce at home donning his own VR gear, you might have noticed that it said VPL on the gloves. And just so that people know, like VPL was basically like one of the first companies to like really like look into virtual reality. And it was founded by this guy, Jaron Lanier. And I just know this stuff from working on the Power Glove video.
Nice.
But long story short, this guy created and his company VPL created the Data Glove, which was the first kind of real VR thing that really like worked well. And it was used by NASA at the Jet Propulsion Laboratories. And from that is where the Power Glove, from that technology, was derived. So just wanted to give that little bit of insight. And also, correction, earlier I said that LawnmowerMan was the fourth movie, the weekend it debuted. It was actually the number 2 movie. And I didn't know this, but so the budget was $10 million. So pretty small budget even for back then.
Sure.
And it grossed $32 million just in the U.S., so it was a hit, or not a hit, but successful enough. And I didn't know this; it's an independent film.
Oh wow! Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it was the biggest indie film of 1992. But anyways, please continue.
Well, while I'm thinking about it, did you know that there's a sequel?
Oh yeah.
Well,
I didn't watch, but I did watch the trailer for it. Doesn't look good.
We're gonna have to do it someday.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this part, you really have to sort of suspend your disbelief, I think, because Job takes his girlfriend to VSI, and it's like, why would they let them in there, like without Dr. Angelo? Because he's the one with all the clearance and everything. But, when I was watching this as a, 12, 13-year-old in the 90s, I never questioned it.
I mean, I thought the same thing, but then I kind of assumed, well, he's got all these mind control powers now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how he's getting in, but they should have shown that, if anything.
Right.
Like him, making, maybe people initially are like, hey, you can't, and then he, stares at them and, oh, go ahead.
Right. I thought...
He's basically a Jedi now, right?
Well, I didn't
basically a Jedi.
think that those abilities he wasn't really in control of them at this point. But sure, whatever. We'll roll with it. So he plugs her into the VSI mainframe and into the gyroscopes and the cyber suits. And they basically make out in VR, because who wouldn't? And then they turn into a weird CGI dragonfly, and then she gets stuck in some weird sort of they describe it as CGI primordial ooze, and the frame rate slows down, which was so weird. And Job then turns into a VR monster, and the girlfriend starts, I think her name is Marty or something, starts freaking out. And he has to basically unplug himself and go and pull him out. And now pull her out. And basically she's a vegetable now. Cut to...
but one that's always laughing or something?
Yeah. Well...
Like she's awake, but but she's not all there anymore.
Right, yeah. So going into VR freaked her out. I remember my first time going to Disney Quest. Same thing happened to me.
Well, funny enough, the actress that played her actually I was reading that she had trouble filming those scenes because of the strobe light. It was making her sick. So basically, they used a body double for all the wide shots she's in. And then the close-up ones, they filmed her on a blue screen. and that's why like her head doesn't really like move,
right,
or that body doesn't move around. So yeah,
yep, they were cutting edge here on Lawnmower Man. So Job is cutting lawns by controlling the lawnmower with his mind, which I used to cut lawns in my neighborhood back when this movie came out, and I just thought that was awesome. I was like, man, if only I had that power, I could buy so many comics. But Timms tells Dr. Angelo he has to go to Washington to present his work. Job arrives at VSI and shows Dr. Angelo his new telekinetic powers. And of course, Tim sees it because they didn't even try to hide it or anything. Job says they're just awakening ancient areas of the brain that was lost to man. And Doc wants to do tests, but Job says no. The treatments have to continue. This is when Job really is transformed. His voice is different. He's like super calm. I love the transformation his hair goes through from like at the beginning of the film. It's all sort of like wiry and looks like young Einstein,
real frizzy all over the place.
Yeah. And now it's
messy.
Like super slick and just like basically supervillain more or less. And so Dr. Angelo goes to Washington, and Timms reveals that they already instigated Project 5. That's what I was looking for earlier. That's the thing that screwed up the chimp at the beginning. And that's what he put into the MSI mainframe that accidentally got used on Job, or purposely got used on Job. Dr. Angelo freaks out. I love his little like freak out in that meeting for some reason. I don't know. And cut to Job goes to VSI to continue the treatments. Timms visits Dr. Angelo at his hotel room. He says they are going to bring Job to Washington. Dr. Angelo realizes people are coming for him too. Meanwhile, Job is back at MSI freaking out because he's injected so much of the drugs into him. And Dr. Angelo is trying to James Bond his way out of the predicament, and he steals a car. There's a scene where, so all these like security guys are coming in on Dr. Angelo, and I love how he overpowers Timms in a very poorly crafted fight.
Awful.
And I didn't think about it, but it's on the IMDb. At first, you think like, how is this scientist able to overpower this? I don't know. I guess you can assume that Timms is like he overpowers a security guard later. And then you think to yourself, ooh, maybe Dr. Angelo has been doing the treatments on himself too. Ooh, think about it, guy. Think about it. Right. So he basically James Bonds his way out of the predicaments. He steals a car. Now, basically, we are at the church, and this starts with, I guess, the fun and games for evil Job, because now he's ready for revenge on Father McKean. Now he's got this awesome sounding computer modulated voice. And he basically, he burns Father McKean with CGI fire.
Oh man, terrible looking. Like I didn't even like realize it was supposed to be like him burning. I just thought it was like some weird power thing he's doing, or maybe it's supposed to be like, I don't know, the guy's cells being disintegrated or something like. And then, like, about halfway through, and the scene is long.
Right.
Like, and it doesn't look good, but they made it, like, really long. And then I'm like, oh, wait, he's, like, burning?
Right. Yeah.
Like, why didn't they, like, throw some smoke in there, like, into the room? Like, something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess the thinking is that he's using the pure power of virtual reality to burn him.
Right, I guess that's
which, I mean, it's funny because now you can see like all manner of like super low budget like action movie with their CGI muzzle flashes and fire. And I mean, even in like big budget stuff, we were watching a show the other day and they were using like CGI fire, and you could still tell it's fake even today.
Yeah, it's very hard to do proper like looking fire in CG. Like sometimes, it'll some movies are TV shows will get it right here and there, but yeah, there's always usually something in your brain that kind of tells you something about this isn't quite how fire behaves.
Yep. So next up on Job's revenge tour, he goes to the gas station attendant, and this was great. First off, he telekinetically uses the gas pumps to tie him up. Then the guy, the bully, he's like, "Oh, please, don't hurt me." And then he basically creates like the CGI avatar of the LawnmowerMan with a lawnmower in the LawnmowerMan's mouth. It's like the the razors or whatever. He sends that to psychically attack the bully's like brain, and it's a CGI representation. and I guess it basically turns him into a vegetable, which I mean it's pretty hilarious looking. What did you think about that scene?
Yeah, it was. It would look hilarious even if you did it today, because it's like the guy's mouth is like lawnmower clippers,
right?
And instead of teeth, and it just, I don't know, like it was kind of funny, and it makes sense, right, for him as a character, Job, to make his revenge. I'm gonna make you dumb now,
right? Yeah.
Because you kept calling me an idiot. Well, now you get to live as an idiot,
right?
So it's a good idea. Not great execution, and like it's weird because like because of the CG and the limitations, you can see that like the clippers, as they're like going through the CG brain, like they literally clip through the CG brain, but the CG brain doesn't move or anything or interact with it at all. So it just looks like real like crap.
Yeah. But at least in the LawnmowerMan, we get actual CG, and not like in our past episodes, which you should definitely check out, where their answer of VR was to just film a regular scene and then put a couple of filters and change the colors in it.
Right.
This is Hollywood, baby. They had a budget, I guess, of $10 million, as you said.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the last stop, well, I guess not last, but revenge number 3 is Peter's dad, the wife-beating drunk, I guess, who was at home watching wrestling, which is WCW Saturday Night. And
no, that was WWF, because Vince McMahon even talks. It's Vince McMahon on commentary, and he even references one of the wrestlers having been in all 7 WrestleManias.
Well, according to the IMDb, which I guess is wrong, because I think you're right. They said it's WCW Saturday Night. But anyway, I remember...
Yeah, it's definitely... I think it's WWF Super. It's definitely a WWF ring, because the ropes were like ropes, not the cable ones like WCW had. And it's Vince McMahon's voice.
Well, there you go, kids. You can't trust everything you read on IMDb. And I remember I used to pop whenever they would show that scene, because I'd be like, oh my gosh, wrestling in a movie. And then now that I think about it, I'm like, they just want to show that this guy's an asshole because assholes watch wrestling.
Right, drunk morons watch wrestling.
Exactly.
So.
And man, they cut to it a lot, like a full, like 2 close-ups of wrestling. So, I mean,
my guess, Steve, is this movie has a $10 million budget. I read that the CG stuff cost them like $500K or something like that, which that's a pretty, when you only have 10 million and you're paying Pierce Brosnan, who, would have needed like a hefty salary to be played. You don't have a lot of money to play with. So my guess is that Vince McMahon and the WWF were like, okay, yeah, you can use this footage, but you have to like show it, like full screen for X amount of time or something.
Oh yeah, maybe. But I mean, Pierce Brosnan was not the name at this point that he is now, because this is pre-James Bond. This is like post-Remington Steele, pre-James Bond. So he's about to be a huge star, but not a big star yet. So I don't think he was too expensive. So I'm saying, but he's worth every penny, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, he basically uses his telekinetic powers to send the cool lawnmower in after Peter's dad. So he basically kills the dad with a lawnmower. And it's a pretty cool scene, I think. Yeah, I'd say typical.
Ridiculous. It's really, I will say that like this movie, like at this point, it turns into like a horror.
Oh yeah, it's full on Stephen King movie at this point. It's like before we were in sort of like a sort of sci-fi like tech area, and then now it's your typical Stephen King movie, I would say at this point.
Yeah, even though it's nothing like the Stephen King
exactly.
And did you see that like Stephen King actually sued?
Oh yeah, to get his name taken off of it. Yeah, but I do hear that there's like a laser discs of the director's cut that says Stephen King's LawnmowerMan on it somewhere. So
that wouldn't surprise me because I read that so Stephen King won the lawsuit to have his name taken off for the advertising of it, but his name could be used like in the actual like I guess some of the materials,
right?
And eventually, like I guess like when the movie was released, New Line in cinema initially still advertised it as Stephen King's thing at first, and then they got held in contempt of court, blah blah. So I bet like some stuff. I bet after that, because they had to pay Stephen King like $2.5 million. I bet after that, they were like, you know what, just take his name off everything.
Right, for sure. So all right, so Daddy's dead. Peter's dad is dead. Cut to Dr. Angelo drives down his neighborhood street. He's now witnessing basically the aftermath of Job's murder spree. And now he sees Predactor from Ace Ventura, who is one of the cops, basically. I'm not sure of that actor's name. I'm not sure if you mentioned him or not. And he's basically giving him a play-by-play of what happened. I'm quite certain like this whole scene is not in the director's cut. He's so then they're like, oh, this guy got moited and this guy got moited. We got to go down and fill out a whole bunch of paperwork. And then they see like Job off to the side, and then they look back at Dr. Angelo, and he's like, it just looks like 3 accidents. Come on, let's go get some donuts. And it's like a really hilarious, like an unintentionally hilarious scene after all like the horror we just witnessed. And yeah, so they call it accidents. Job goes back into, he goes into Dr. Angelo's VR unit this time, the one with the floating, falling, flying, and fucking. Dr. Angelo grabs the VR helmet off of him, and inside he sees like an avatar of Job telling him that VR is a whole new universe. And he tells him he's going back to VSI to put himself into the mainframe computer to become pure energy. And once he enters the neural net, his birth cry will be the sound of every phone ringing in unison, which is kind of like a cool line, but it doesn't really work here in 2022 since no one has a landline anymore. So Dr. Angelo says he's had a psychotic breakdown, and he does seem like he really wants to help Job at this point. Job reads Dr. Angelo's mind and sees that the shop, which is what they refer to the military-industrial complex, that they're coming to get him. And then using his telekinetic abilities, he ties up Dr. Angelo. The shop sends a bunch of security guards to come get Job. And this is when some really awful effects happen. First off, they have that weird representation of the security van that Job can see through the house. Do you know what I'm talking about? God, that thing is awful. That is not in the original version that I saw. When I first saw that, I burst into laughter.
Laughter.
Yeah, I mean that's something you would see in a science video in school, in 3rd grade or something. Right. And then, so the guards surround the house. They all have submachine guns, and Job projects this giant golden version of his head above them. The idiot guards try to shoot him, and then he turns them into giant pixels, basically, which look hilarious.
It's they use a weird. So I read a little bit about it, and it's technically a particle effect.
I can see that.
A very early one, obviously, and
you remember the game Balls?
Yeah.
Or how about even more so Vector Man?
Vector Man. Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of.
So their bodies get turned into like these little balls, but they're not that little because this is the 90s, and you can't have like millions of these like particles.
Right.
You know, they would still be rendering it out right now. You know, and it looks awful. Like they're just like these little bouncy balls, and then they slowly start disconnecting from the body from itself. But it looks terrible. There's no blood. And how I think that they did this is as a CG artist.
Right, of course.
Just from the way it looks like they did is, you know, they created like the particles or whatever, and then they just literally did like a video texture of like the guys and just like did those over those particles, and it doesn't look good at all.
No.
And like there were a couple of them too that I swear I could see like the texture, the seam where it like wrapped on itself. So like, yeah, that's not a good effect. So naturally they use it like 4 more times.
Right. If you watch the director's cuts, like this scene is not in the movie because I think they knew how bad it was. So they got rid of it.
Everything looks bad. Like the giant head of Job looks bad. It's just like, it looks like somebody like just put like a gold filter right on his head. And then just like in Photoshop, if you were to like super emboss something, it just looks like it's been embossed.
I love it when people talk to me in Photoshop filters. I understand completely what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So because of this whole display, the director has now seen Job in action because I guess I forgot to mention before the security guards leave like their white rapey creeper van. The director says, make sure you keep me on like the, I don't know, security camera because I want to see, you know, what happens more or less. So he basically sees his men get turned into whatever, to Skittles or Pixels or whatever you want to call them. So now that we're with the director who's in the flesh now, talking to Timms. I think he's in the flesh. I can't even remember. It doesn't really matter. He tells Timms to confiscate all of Angelo's files because he's been hiding this weapon from them. And Timms is like, "Oh, I can't believe it. That's not our Dr. Angelo. I know him well." So let's see. Where are we here? Job has Terry. This is an awkward scene too. Job has Terry pick him up for a ride to MSI. He's obviously using his psychic abilities to control him. Peter, local Peter, comes and picks up frees Dr. Angelo from his bounds. And Dr. Angelo then hacks a VSI mainframe to protect it from the internet, basically. All the troops stand waiting for Job at the front of VSI, and then how is Job going to destroy all these security guards? He uses digital bees to destroy them.
That looked awful.
Who came up with that? It was like, I mean, they could have used anything. Like maybe he could have like done I don't know, so just something more. I mean, I guess bees are horrifying to some people. It could have done something that could have been easier to design, maybe like, you know, robots or just shards of something that he all could have just been like.
And honestly, you can't even like tell that they're supposed to be bees other than the sound of the buzzing, because they don't even look like bees. They just look like these weird shapes, yellowish shapes.
And in hilarious sort of like, you know, 1940s monster movie fashion, the stupid guards try to shoot the bees. I mean, I guess you really have no choice but to try something at that point, but they're just trying to shoot.
And there's like a big bug that comes out of the bees too, like some other kind of bug that attacks them, and that's what ends up killing them, right? The big bug or whatever.
Right. And so I mean, you can see this coming from a mile away. Terry and Job sit in the truck, and a guard out of nowhere shoots Terry for really no good reason other than to make Job angry. And it just seems like poor planning. Yeah, Job then makes this guard who has like a full length like sniper rifle awkwardly like try to shoot himself in the head, and you can see it takes like several like cuts to try to get the guard to like angle the barrel, and I still don't even think he gets it in the end. But
no, it's weird. Like the gun is like pointing like up basically, right? Yet somehow still shoots him in the forehead.
Right? Yeah,
By the way, I did see in the chat we had somebody, Detroit Retro Gamer DRG313, left us 3 red heart emojis, 3 virtual hearts.
Thank you. Oh, I haven't. Yeah, that guy used to show up quite a bit. Thanks for showing up again. But so yeah, there's a lot of there's some pretty funny logic things that happen here in our third act that I hope got cleaned up in the director's cut. I don't really remember if they do or not, but anyway, we're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. So he makes the guard shoot himself. It's hilarious. Then he turns Tim's into pixels as well. Job does. Then Peter shows up to Dr. Angelo's. He already did. He freed him. He gets his mom to give Dr. Angelo a ride to MSI. And which is hilarious. And then of course Dr. Angelo tells them to go and like leave them, and he picks up a random submachine gun out of nowhere, and this is hilarious. His mom, Peter and his mom are just like, we're just gonna wait here just on the side of the road for no reason. Like, I get that they're neighbors, but they never really did anything to clarify like the like any kind of connection between the mom, Dr. Angelo, and Peter, other than the fact that they're just casual neighbors. And had I been in that situation, I would just be like, I mean, unless he specifically asked me to wait, I'd be like, you need a ride, Doc? Sure, but I'm out of here. Like, it sounds like there's some bad stuff going on. I mean, it's a little much to like, to believe that the mom would wait for no reason. Don't you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, but I guess this just had to have her there. But yeah,
I agree. On the other hand, that Pierce Brosnan is a charmer, and if I were the mom, I'd be like, you know what? If I wait for him, there might be a chance we could hook up later. So there you go. We can just go with that. So Dr. Angelo shoots his way into MSI. He leaves a bomb that he just happens to know how to operate, but I guess he is a genius, so how hard could it be, I guess? Dr. A goes over to Job in his VR gear, and he's now turned into Silly Putty and a rubber mask. And this is kind of where I guess you have to sort of suspend your disbelief. I mean, how can you get sucked into a VR world, even with all the shots in the world?
And it like dehydrates your body to do that. So what happened? Did his body's like liquids somehow get sucked into like cyberspace? Like,
right.
It looked cool. Like when his body like kind of like gets all emaciated, and I thought it actually looked pretty cool. But
right, again, I don't remember being in the director's cut. So here we are in the VR world. We have the full LawnmowerMan avatar going on, and he kind of looks like Vin Diesel if you think about it. A CGI Vin Diesel who can like barely move his mouth to like say lines. And he's in the mainframe, and he realizes that he's trapped. He's, I guess, done whatever it is he's going to do in there, and now he's trying to find his way out. So in comes Dr. Angelo, and now, so Dr. Angelo's motivation to go in there is that he's still trying to save Job. That's like the only thing because if he's already trapped him, like, what else is there to do but to go in there and try to... I mean, if I were him, I would feel responsible.
The only thing I could think of is I do think that you're right, that the whole point is like to show us that he wants to help him. But I guess logically, like maybe he just wants to make sure he doesn't like get out of there to like another like computer, because he did set up like those blocks to keep him from like using a network to escape basically being destroyed.
Right.
So, maybe he's like, okay, I need to go in there and distract him or whatever.
Sure. And to just paint a picture of what's going on inside the VR world, the LawnmowerMan, he keeps like touching this like, I don't know, it actually looks like a a 20-sided die from D&D. That's like it's a code that's supposed to get him out of the mainframe, but it keeps saying access denied. Oh, and I forgot one of the things that annoys me about a lot of the computer interactions is the sound of the computer's voice. Did that grate on did that grate on you at all? It's like
it's very like it's a very 90s computer voice kind of
I feel like not even so. It's like I feel like what you get in computer voices is, you got your howls, and then you got your very sort of robotic ones, and this one almost sounds like effeminate in a way. It's sometimes like I don't know. Anyway,
see, really, I felt it was like just like very generic and normal. But not every computer voice can be as masculine and testicular as the voice of Thunder, the boat from Thunder in Paradise. That boat's like missiles armed.
Oh, see, that's what I want. That's what I want in a computer voice. But anyway, okay, we're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. I promise. So, all right, Dr. A or Angelo, whose avatar I always thought looked a lot like the Silver Surfer. Basically, he goes in and the LawnmowerMan pretty much beats him up. Like he keeps knocking him away, and then he very slowly keeps getting up. The frame rate in this VR world is so slow. Let's see. Dr. Angelo's mind finds out. So LawnmowerMan reads his mind, and he finds out about the bombs. He tries to stop them, but he can't because he's in the VR world. So he goes back to trying to find the code to get out of there. And then out of nowhere, it's funny, they explain how he gets there later. Peter wanders in to MSI again. Like, I mean, I guess how strong, I mean, Dr. Angelo must have had the best video games in the neighborhood. And I mean, Peter must have been over there like every day. I mean, I guess you could infer that Dr. Angelo was like the dad that he wanted, since his dad was so awful. Right. And they didn't really have time to develop this in the movie because, they were busy showing Tim's having the world's biggest Zoom meetings with the director.
Right. By the way, I don't think have we explained like why we keep saying like the Skype meeting and Zoom meetings are so big? It's literally like how tall would you say that video wall is? Like
10 foot,
10 feet
yeah,
high?
12 foot.
Like 10 by like 10 by 10.
At least, yeah.
And it's literally like this guy having a video conversation with the director, but the director's entire face, it's just like a giant close-up of his face.
Right.
Where it's so close, you can't see the top of his head or the bottom of his jaw.
Yeah, I feel like that's very like sort of 60s like tech sci-fi spy aesthetic. Yeah. Which is really kind of weird seeing it here in the 90s, but whatever. So yeah, Peter, I guess he didn't want his video game playing with Dr. Angelo to end. He wanders into MSI looking for, I guess, maybe both of them, because he was friends with Job too. I guess he just wanted to save his adult friends so bad. He goes into MSI, a really scary looking building. Right. And Peter somehow wanted, so he gets Dr. A out of the gyroscope, and so they run out. The door is locked, but Job unlocks it. Oh wait, so I didn't write this down. So Job hears Peter's voice, and I guess it sort of makes him feel he can't blow up Peter. So he lets Dr. Angelo out of the mainframe so he can then get Peter out of MSI. There's a locked door, but Job then unlocks it. They run out. The bombs start to go off. The LawnmowerMan hits one last access code, and he goes, a back door! And it's an access granted. And then MSI explodes. And then we get another voiceover of
Yeah, and just to be clear, we do see, Job escapes through this access granted back.
In voiceover, Dr. Angelo says he's going to be taking his work underground now, and we can now see that Peter and Peter's mom are like about to go somewhere, and he says he's going to be with them in 1 minute. Looks like they're going to be a family now. We kind of get a pretty happy ending for Dr. Angelo here, which I don't think this is in the director's cut. And do you think that Dr. Angelo deserves a happy ending here?
I mean, I don't think he ultimately gets a happy ending because of what happens right after that. But you're right. This is not in the director's cut, because I did look up a list of the differences between the director's cut and this one. And in the director's cut, his wife doesn't leave him. Like, she just goes to and there's like some additional scenes with his wife too that are cut from the theatrical version. So yeah, so we don't get this in the director's cut. But right after this, what happens, like, he hears his phone ring, and then pans out to like the shot of like
all the
city,
phones
and
going off.
All the phones are going
and
off.
That is in the director's cut as well. So yeah, the lawnmower man, he gets out. So
he's coming.
He's coming for you. Watch out.
So I did like that. That was a cool little callback, because earlier, he says, like millions of phones ringing will be like my battle cry, or whatever he says. And it is kind of like cool and eerie, right?
Yes.
Like I think it would have been better if the scene where Pierce hears the phone ringing wouldn't have just been his phone. It would have been better if he and Peter and his mom were out in public, and then he hears a ton of phones ringing.
Right.
Because like that could just be like anybody calling him, for all he knows.
Right. Yeah, I think I feel like they were probably just showing a lot of like stock footage at the end with just whatever SFX or sound effects they had laying around of like ringing phones, because they were trying to save a little bit of money at the end. But so that is the end of the theatrical cut of the Lawnmower Man. Let's render some verdicts here. So,
and Steve, I hate to say this, but I have some additional information about Lawnmower Man.
Oh, I would love to hear it. Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, so the studio that made the CG special effects was called Angel Studios, and I just thought this was pretty interesting. They also worked on, I got a few tidbits about them. So they ended up doing are you familiar with Peter Gabriel's Kiss the Frog music video that has a bunch of CG in it?
Yes.
They did that.
All right.
They did a few other like music video things, but they also did the CG scenes or cutscenes for the Sega CD version of Echo, The Tides of Time, which is the Echo the Dolphin game.
Nice.
And they also, from that, ended up getting hired to do some cutscenes for a game called Mr. Bones on the Sega Saturn. Anyways, this ends up kind of like turning into, and then like Nintendo was impressed by them, so they got them to do some stuff. Long story short, this turns into them going from a visual effects company into a video game company. So they started like working on games, and eventually they got bought by Take-Two/Rockstar, and now they're part of Rockstar Games.
Good for them.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, kind of weird that they are officially renamed to Rockstar San Diego. The other thing I want to tell you, there were video games for the Lawnmower Man. And the video games, like, they're all actually a direct sequel to the film.
I did read that, yes.
Yeah. So, and it's of course, like, the 16-bit ones are platformers, but the Sega CD version and the PC versions were like interactive movies.
You ever play any of those? I played the SNES one. It's not very good.
Yeah, and that's the best reviewed one.
Oh wow!
I remember renting the Super Nintendo one, and I know that like it turns out that like Job is actually being controlled by the shop.
Oh wow!
Which kind of I don't know how I feel about that. I think that's kind of lame. So I mean, I guess maybe they were trying to be like, see, Job's not such a bad guy or whatever. But that was I I think the last bits of information I had regarding LawnmowerMan. Thank God.
All right, man. So, Agent Velazquez. Should the LawnmowerMan be remembered for all of time, or should it be tossed into the black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again?
I'm gonna go with no. It's like not. It's too long.
Mm-hmm.
It's at times like it's kind of funny in how bad and cheap and campy a couple of things are, but the film as a whole isn't like, to me, like so bad it's good territory. And I just don't think it's very interesting, partly because of the length.
I think if you watch the director's cut, it might change your mind. I mean, I'm not...
If I watch an extra 39 minutes of this, get out of here, Steve. I read what's in the director's cut, and I am not impressed.
I wish I would have, so I could... It's a tough call, but I feel like this is like a good time capsule film. This is definitely clunky. The pacing is all wrong here as far as like filmmaking goes. However, I mean, you didn't find like the bits with the CGI interesting? Like, just to go back and...
I gotta be honest with you. I thought when this movie came out, because even though I didn't see it in theaters, I remember like seeing it like the trailers, and I did see bits and pieces of it on TV eventually. But anyways, I always thought, even as a 12-year-old, that the CG looked terrible.
Whoa. Well, I guess even at the age of 12, you were just too cool for school.
Well, I wasn't even like, I didn't even like think like when 3D video game consoles started coming, home, like the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1 and those first ones. I didn't like those games.
Oh, I didn't like that either.
I thought the 3D stuff just looked very bad. And at that point, you were getting to just about the height of like 2D pixel art, right? So like 2D pixel art like was looking like really, really good, and then it felt like a step back to me, and this just kind of reminded me of crappy computer graphics of the time. So,
well, I'm gonna vote to save it, at least, if not for any reason, for Jeff Fahey and the Pierce Brosnan performances. The rest of it could probably be tossed away. Aside from a few, I mean, I don't know. As I said, I saw it at a very young age, and it made quite an impression on me. Stuff that I still have never forgotten, even to this day. So I think I have a lot more nostalgia for it than you, at least in a positive way. So, yeah, looks like we got another stalemate here. Let's run it.
This is the pathetic podcast. Obscurity Now, and once again rendered a verdict of no contest. That's right, a stalemate. They've wasted everyone's time. They have just as lazy as Congress is twice as corrupt. Boo, I say, tar and feather, get out the guillotine. Boo to the stalemate, and boo to Obscurity Now.
Whew. This is actually, I just like to have the stalemates just because it's my favorite bumper. Because he's like, that's right, they wasted everybody's time.
So you actually secretly love the Lawnmower Man, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I'm just like, okay, I think Steve's going to say yes, so I'm going to say no.
So, do you think, all right, there's no way you could remake this film, right? Because virtual reality isn't like hip and cutting edge anymore, right?
Well, the problem is it is cutting edge now, and it looks good, and people know what it. The problem is like people know what it really is like. So you can't like be like, oh, it's a whole new universe.
Right. Yeah, you can't like fudge the. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess you could do. This is the kind of movie that like if you were gonna redo it, you'd could do it with like some kind of like it wouldn't be virtual reality. It'd have to be something that doesn't really exist. Like, oh, does you like a mental a brain implant that lets you experience X, Y things. So you could kind of like do it with something similar to virtual reality as long as it's not virtual reality.
So do you think that just to sum up our virtual reality month, this is the final installment, like, do you think that this was just like all the other shows? Was the Lawnmower Man just sort of cashing in on a fad, just like all the other ones? I mean, do you think you could still make a movie like the Lawnmower Man just using something else?
I think it could have been anything. It didn't have to be virtual reality because honestly, like the movie, it doesn't like really delve outside of them playing like those VR games with the motion controls and that kind of stuff. It doesn't really delve into like virtual reality that much, and per se, like I mean, I know that they are quote unquote in the VR world and we see like the CG and that kind of stuff, but I feel like you could have made that anything because, okay, like yeah. It's not the VR stuff that's making him smart. It's a combination of those drugs, and then the VR is just being used as a tool to like feed his brain information.
Right.
You could have that could have been just him sitting in front of a computer screen.
Sure. I mean, I think they dove into it as much as they felt the mainstream could accept in a feature-length Hollywood movie. Yeah. But also, you're probably correct in what you're saying. But anyway.
Did you notice that like one trope that they avoided here that I don't think was avoided in anything else we watched, and it was something that like lots of '90s movies having anything to do with technology did. Looking at You, Sandra Bullock, and The Net was used like incorrectly used like computer terminology and terms like. They barely do that. They barely use like any like real techie words or like technobabble throughout this.
Yeah.
And when they do, it's mostly correct. Like when they refer to their mainframe computer, like it's correct. When he talks about like using networks to like reach other computers, you know, the use in the context is correct. So I'll give them that. Like they didn't like try to like do the '90s typical like, oh, you gotta do this to the RAM and you know. Whatever.
Right,
you know,
like
so give them that.
needing, like creating a version of the game that runs twice as fast, but still needing the source code, like in Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah, like in Murder, She Wrote. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Well, that's it for the Lawnmower Man. How's everything going over at Wrestling with Gaming?
Pretty good. Still don't have a new video out yet, but I'm still riding high, Stephen, because of YouTube's algorithm pushing my videos. I just had my second video to hit 1 million views happened a couple days ago, so I'm a real big man, and my YouTube my YouTube silver play button arrives on I think Tuesday or Wednesday. So I will probably be doing a live stream Friday. If not, maybe the weekend after that, unboxing it. Figured that'd be fun and probably play some games. Maybe I'll fire up Lawnmower Man.
Oh man, one of the things that I want to do with this channel is to play the games that tie into whatever we talk about on Sunday, or at least stream them. But my God, I just don't have the time.
Well, maybe one day what we can do is. Get like on a Friday or Saturday, even if it's just an hour or something on my channel, we can stream the game. That way people get to see us interacting and we're just a bunch of fun guys.
Right.
And then we can say, hey, we're going to cover this film or TV that this game is based off in a couple days on Sunday and kind of use that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds awesome indeed.
And then you don't have to worry about setting up the stream or the equipment for that. And we can use my channel's size to get us 1 or 2 more views.
It's girth.
Yes.
Yep. Size does matter.
So what's going on with you? I believe you have a trailer, right, for your I almost said for your video. You have a trailer for your video? You have a trailer for your comic Escape from Earth?
That's right. Thank you for bringing that up. I finally finished the cinematic crowdfunding trailer for Escape to Earth, the comic that we've...
Escape to Earth.
Yep, we've talked about a couple times on a few past videos. Finally finished it. Let's just roll it so we can get out of here. Here we go.
Sweet.
I'm having a weird day. The name's Adam. Where I'm from, I'm known as the Zero Thief. Depending on who you ask, some might say I'm the best thief. But believe it or not, even the best screws up every once in a while, and that's what I did, and I had to make a fast getaway. I ended up crash landing on this bizarre planet. Turns out, I didn't get away fast enough. These winged freaks followed me here.
It's just us here, Zero Thief, on this empty backwoods planet. So start talking, either to me or my blade.
Okay, I do have something to tell you. It's about the planet. it's not that empty. Come on, man. I thought you were gonna duck. Cut me loose. Behind you. Whoa! Thought I was done for. It was gonna be a light snack for a snarling creature, but then she showed up, riding on the back of one of those monsters like it was nothing, and with a wave of her hand, the other razor-toothed beast just stomped away. I'd never seen anyone like her before in my life. I thought I'd say something clever. Thanks, have you seen my ship? She gave me a look that said more than words ever could, because I think she was trying to read my mind or something. And from there, things just got even weirder. Escape to Earth. 30 pages of insane dinosaur action that will leave you hungry for more. Issue 1, crowdfunding now. Written and created by Stephen Honeycutt. Art by Antonio Brandao. Colors by Bruno Furlani. Jump on now before the whole human race is extinct. Download the digital preview today. And there it is. Are you there?
Nice. Yeah. So I was a little behind.
Right. I figured you were.
The trailer, but yeah, dude. That's great, dude. The guys that were capturing Zero Thief almost sounded a little bit like LawnmowerMan, actually.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, no, it is a compliment.
Yeah.
Dude, that looks. I mean, I like I told you before, like I genuinely enjoyed your little ash can preview of it, and I mean, not that I thought it would be bad or anything like that, because I've enjoyed like all of the creative stuff you've done before, but yeah, it was really good. I was genuinely impressed and like really liked it. I was sorry when it ended.
Thanks, man. Well, I've already gotten a lot of pages in, and so I don't know, now that the video's done, I'm running out of excuses. And I mean, obviously the crowdfunder is not up yet, but hopefully whoever's watching this, check the description. Maybe there's a link to it now. It might be up. Who knows? But anyway, let's get out of here. Make sure you like and subscribe and tell all your friends if you actually got to the end of this review of The Lawnmower Man. We talk about comics, TV, and video games here on Obscurity Now, and we're actually talking about a comic book next week, Ghost Rider 2099. #1. So make sure you join us. Then we stream live every Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. So see you next time as we continue to look at even more obscure media only on Obscurity Now. You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.